Welcome to Classic Cuts, located between 3rd and South Washington Street, right in the heart of downtown Spokane, Washington. If you ever in the area and you need an exclusive cut, I suggest you go holler at Jay Trout, where the prices are affordable and you'll leave feeling confident, refreshed, and refined. Now let's get into this episode and find out some of the rich history that helped establish this barbershop. Welcome to Be Heard with YB. Let's get it. Welcome to Be Heard with YB. Today is going to be a very interesting episode. Today we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship and what it takes to own a business. Today I'm here with a prominent business owner and entrepreneur himself, Jay Trout. How you doing, Jay?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, my
All
brother.
right.
Glad to have you on the show, by the way.
Glad to be here. You've been talking about it for a while.
Oh yeah, for a while. We've been trying to make it happen. So just so y'all know, we've been trying to make it happen. But we finally here though. And this the second season, so we finna get into it. It's gonna be a very informational episode. Today you're gonna leave here with something. And we just want you guys to take that and run with it. Run to the hills with it. So for those who don't know who you are, Jay, could you give them an overview and an insight of who you are and what you stand for?
Man, I'm a barber here in Spokane. I've been in Spokane for 40 years. What I stand for, I'm just like any guy trying to make a living,
right,
and do things the right way.
Right.
Been on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
But made it out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And raising a family. I've raised one that's 28, but I have a couple more at home. And
still making them.
No. We finished with that one. I'll be 52 this coming Friday.
Right.
So we finished with that.
That's
we
blessed.
finished with
That's
that. Right.
That's a blessing.
So, I was telling my father recently, I didn't see making it to 25.
Right.
And then I didn't see 50.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are now. And so just trying to first and foremost make a living for my family and for myself, but also stay positive,
right,
and without doing a whole lot of talking to youngsters and all that, show an example,
right,
of what you can do, and don't let nobody tell you what you can't.
Exactly.
Even in a city like this one,
mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you don't see a whole lot of prominent. I wouldn't even say prominent. You just don't see a whole lot of black folks that own their own business.
Most definitely.
And so, in a city like where you come from in Memphis, there's a barbershop on every corner.
Exactly.
Right. But there's not a barbershop on every corner. And when I grew up here, there was one guy, okay? I had immense respect for him,
mm-hmm.
but there was one guy, and actually he was from Memphis by way of, I think he's from Arkansas by way of Memphis.
Right,
okay?
right.
And so the point that I'm making is there were, like today, you can see, 8 or 9 barbershops.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about, it's not about separating folks, but I'm talking about where they're black owned.
Right.
And there's only, maybe 7 or 8 maybe in the whole city, where I don't know how many there is in Memphis, but there's a bunch.
Man, it's a lot.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a lot.
And there's a bunch, and just, it's only 275 miles away, but the cities are night and day difference. We're talking about Seattle,
mm-hmm.
Tacoma and all that. It's different. And so I'm from a city that just didn't have a whole lot of examples.
Right.
So when it came to looking at examples, I didn't have to look no further than my own household.
Right.
My father was the example. My mother was the example.
Right.
Right. But so that's what I'm about, man. I grind it out every day, but I'm doing everything the right way.
Okay.
And doing my best, like I said, to be an example without doing a whole lot of lip service.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I could dig that. Let's get into it, y'all. Now y'all see who Jay is, man. That's why I love him. You see what I'm saying? Very informational, man. What inspires you, to become a business owner? What inspired you to have your own?
So, you go back to the beginning of me becoming a barber. Mm-hmm. It was, I was sitting up, trying to think about what would I want to do. Some folks, they go. I think I told you my father was in the military, and so he pretty much knew he was going in the military from the time he was 10 years old. His father told him. My father grew up in Philadelphia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so his father told him, go in the military, do 20 years, and you'll have it made.
Right.
And so my father was kind of instilling that into his children.
Right.
Hey man, you go do the 20 years and you'll have it made. I was hard headed,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so I wasn't going. I had always had a problem with authority,
Right.
you know, and so the idea of going into the military just didn't sink in for me, you know. But I think it's good for some, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't good for me. I probably would have got locked up because I wasn't going to listen, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
so, you know, years ago, you know, I'm a big boxing fan, and years ago, I listening to Ali talk, and he said that life doesn't begin until you're 40.
Right.
So I always felt like I had time, even though that ain't necessarily the truth as far as when it
Mm-hmm.
begins. So I was about 36, and my thought process was, what can I do and be happy with working until I retire or until I don't want to work no more?
Right.
What could I do? Because I wouldn't be able to just do no regular job and have somebody micromanage me or having to come and report to somebody
Right.
every other day, you know?
See, that's the thing right there. A lot of us don't work our mind. We work our body
Right.
because we too lazy to work our mind.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And then you get to the point where it's like you get frustrated with authority.
That's right.
Because if you really look at the definition of authority, it's not what is being exemplified in today's America. Authority is a personal thing. It's God ordained. You have authority of self first and
Right.
foremost.
Right.
So when you take the authority from self and put it in the hands of somebody else to be authority over you, it does something to the being. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's why I think a lot of Americans and a lot of people in general don't know how to like abide by the certain rules that other people give, because first and foremost they don't abide by the rules of themselves. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, they overwork themselves.
Yeah. You know, I had a job, the job I had right before this one.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I used to love to work the graveyard.
Right.
All right. Because you could get up the next day and you could go handle all your business and whatever. And so the supervisor there said, you know, he stopped. He said, Jay, man, you ain't spoke to me in 3 days. I said, no, I spoke to you. I said, hello.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, I'm just saying, you walk around like you don't want to be here. I said, no, I walk around like I'm doing my job. I said, did I do my job?
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah, you do your job well. I said, so why are you stopping me then? Why are you asking? Why are you worried about whether or not we're having a conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, you know, he was irritated, but he was irritated that I wasn't conversating with him the way he wanted me to conversate with him. And man, I just got to thinking about all those kinds of things, you know. And so, I rapped with my wife, and I procrastinated and all that kind of stuff. And then my wife filled out the FAFSA paperwork.
Right.
You know, I probably wouldn't have been a barber had she not done that, because I just wasn't. I was always procrastinating.
Right.
I was letting grass grow up under my feet all the time. You know. So when she did that, I went to barber school. They said, if you miss a day at barber school, it costs you $44 a day. So I ain't missed no days.
Ain't got $44.
Yeah. You know, I didn't miss no days.
Right.
But also, I was older than a lot of the folks that were there, and some of them didn't have the same. We just weren't cut from the same cloth. They didn't have the same mindset, and understandably so, because some of them were 21, 22. They wasn't thinking the way I was thinking.
Right.
Because you could get a check too. It's like going to school. So some of them was just coming to get a check or to pass the time. I was thinking about, I got to get something going.
Right.
Right. I got to get something going. So I did that. Now, what got me going as far as having my own place, even when I was an independent contractor in somebody else's barbershop, I still had to listen to what he was talking about.
Exactly.
Because it was his.
Exactly.
And so you can be, you know, that can go left or right. You can be with a guy that's solid, or you can be with a guy that's not solid and that's insecure and is driven by what people think of him and how he can make somebody else do something. Well, I just wasn't ever built to. You can't make me do nothing. You know what I mean? Early on into that, I knew I wasn't. I never when I started barbering, it was never about having my own place.
Right.
That's why it's not named after me.
Right.
Right? So people used to say, "Man, you should name it Jay's." No, I don't need it to be Jay's. You know what I mean? I'm not looking for somebody to say, "Oh, that's Jay's place." You know what I mean? So early on, you know, that I only went to one barbershop before I opened up my own, and man, right away, he rubbed me the wrong way. Uh, I went to get a hold of him, and man, somebody was there to stop it, and he had gotten jealous because I had been there for 8-9 months, and when people walk in, they was looking for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even people that had been with him for a while, they were looking to go in another direction.
Right.
Somebody that wasn't taking them for granted.
Right.
Also, somebody that was hungry. You know how it is. You see a guy have his first album. That first album be better than all the other ones because that's the one.
Yeah, that's the one that he was driven on. He was driven.
Nas. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the one he was driven. You know,
Right.
the other one sometimes you take it for granted. So, I had a conversation with my pops again. And he said, "Hey, man, don't put your hands on him because you're missing the big picture.
Right.
And you're gonna get locked up.
Right.
Blah 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 blah."
It cost you more than anything.
Right. And so I did that for 4 years. And so what did I do in those 4 years? I built up a clientele. So that when the time was right, or if I wasn't in control of when I was going to leave, I would leave with clientele. Because you got to have clientele. I mean,
Right.
how do you make clientele? You make yourself available. So I was always there. So people thought that I owned the barbershop that I was in.
Right.
They were like, "Oh yeah, he the owner over there." You know what I mean? And the real owner get mad.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't have got mad if I was the owner. I just kept on cutting because it didn't make no difference to me. But as time went on, he became a little more irritated, and you know what I mean. And the tension was rising, and even the other barbers were gravitating to me, And it just got to the point where I was like, it's time for me to go.
Right.
Right. It's time.
Outgrew it.
I outgrew it. So I did that. When I left, one of the barbers was like, "I told you, when you leave, I leave." I said, "Man, I wouldn't leave just yet because it's going to take me a couple months." He said, when you leave, I leave." He left with me, and so my wife had a lot to do with the planning of it, putting things together, and so we did that. Took a couple months. We did that. I had a location just up the street from here on Monroe. That was kind of a nightmare, as far as the management. All right, but I made it through that, and then where I am now, where you come, I went to high school a block away. So those were my stomping grounds.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I was driving by one day. I seen that they were closing. I got all the way back to my shop, my old shop, and I U-turned. I came back, and I called the property manager, somebody that I was already used to dealing with. And long story short, I told him to secure this place for me today.
Right. And that's what we got today.
That's what we got today.
Classic cuts.
We went through some stuff, just to get it. But I said secure it today, and then that's where we are now. So I opened up there in August of 2018.
Right.
And we've been rolling ever since.
Okay. From just hearing that, I got three bases to touch on. When you spoke mindset, did you have kids at that time?
I did.
You did?
I did.
So, did they play a valuable role in some of the decision making that you was doing? As far as like trying to make sure that everything kind of folds into what you want it to be?
Yeah, absolutely, because they played a role in everything that I did.
Right.
Right? It wasn't just my father's words or my mother's words. It was, I can't go. Even when I wanted to get a hold of that owner from the other shop, I had to think about my family.
Right.
Kids, wife, everything. But they didn't necessarily play a role in my thoughts as far as owning a shop.
Right.
But as time went on, I'm glad that they see me having my own shop, because they one day might want to have their
change
own.
their mindset,
and that's their and so. Well, I don't even have to change their mindset because that is their mindset. Right. They don't have a mindset of something else. My son sees me as a boss. Right.
Right.
You know what I mean? in a good way. You know what I mean? But that's what he sees. My youngest son has never seen me go to work and work for someone else.
Right.
Right. And so he's a boss. And so when he's thinking, he's always thinking, I'm gonna have my own. You know what I mean? Whether he takes over the barbershop or not, he's always thinking that he's a boss, and that he can do something without someone else being the one that guides him,
Right.
through
Right.
everything, but still having enough humility to if he needed to work for someone else,
Right.
he still has enough humility to follow the rules.
Right.
Something that his dad didn't really have. I didn't have that.
Right.
But he does. And my daughter does. And so they're so they didn't really their presence didn't make me want to open up a shop. My peace of mind is what brought me there, because I didn't have peace of mind anymore where I was before.
Right.
Like, when is this contract up? Okay, do I got to continue to deal with this guy? Or just, and it was in the mall, and so you had to go by mall hours.
Right.
Well, you're not, even if I own that shop, if somebody's telling me that I have to have my doors open at 10 o'clock until 9 o'clock, what kind of boss is that if I can't have my own hours?
Right.
So there's no peace of mind there.
Right.
Well, I have peace of mind now because I signed that contract. I signed the contract, right? And I don't have all them issues with management and all that kind of stuff. But my children in a way are always a part of the thought process.
Exactly.
But I can't tell no stories now. But me opening up that place was not about them. Me opening up that place was really about me and how I was gonna feel for the next. You know how you have some people, they work and then they do 30, 40 years and then they retire,
Right.
and they pass away
Right.
6 months later.
Right.
Or they retire and they say, I don't want to just sit at home. I need to find me a part-time gig.
Right.
Well, I have that because I can work for the next 20, 30 years. And then if I want to come to work for part-time, you know what I mean, and just be around the barbershop, I have that. As long as I'm not there out of obligation, I could be there until I'm 90 years old.
You're right about that.
You know what I'm saying?
And my granddad used to always tell me, he'll say, just from that comment, he'll say the debt of time weighs down on your body. So when people retire at a certain age, and then they don't have number like 5 years after that to live and enjoy themselves, you know what I mean? So that always stuck with me, you know what I mean? That's why I was like, man, I can't be working and out here slaving my body, especially when I got a brain. You know what I mean? Because I think I'm very intelligent. I think I got a good head on my shoulder to be out doing more things other than just working for somebody else.
That's right.
And another thing is that I had took a trip to Seattle, and I see a lot of agents, but most of the agents in Seattle have their own business.
Absolutely.
Because they come to America with a mindset of starting a business. They don't come here thinking to work for somebody else. And with what you display to your kids, it's like the same type of outcome in that. It's like, I don't want to work for nobody. I see my dad, he doing his thing. He got his own place. He run it. So that's the mindset that they're gonna have growing up in life. That's right. You know what I mean? And I think that's very valuable. And I think that's where we were at one point in time as African American people, black people, whatever they like to call us. I think that's where we were at one point in time. We wanted to own. We wanted to have our own.
The Black Wall Street.
Right.
And all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
So with that being said, it's like, I think we should get back to that. I don't know how some of us will get back to that, but due to public social norms, as the way that they publicize the black man or the black woman as how they're supposed to be, when in actuality, we know deep down in ourselves why we fight ourselves so much that that's not us. You know what I mean? So I really like that.
I think it's one person and one family at a time.
Exactly.
You know, that's how you do it. It's not going to be somebody go out and start preaching to everybody and say you can do it. You just got to, people. We have to be examples, and people have to see it and then run with it.
Right.
You know, and that's it. Larry is the guy that I'm talking about. That's from Memphis by way of Arkansas, or Arkansas by way of Memphis, whichever one that still has a barbershop on the east side. He's the first black barber in Spokane. He's been an example for everybody here.
Right.
And then there's some brothers that opened up places here. They don't even know the history of Spokane. They don't even know that the doors that he opened up. You know what I mean? And so, not a whole lot, but he was type of influence. You know, again, I can't tell no stories.
Right, right.
I wasn't thinking about him when I opened up.
Right.
I was, like I said, I could have stayed at that mall. I could have still been at that mall if the dude was right. You know, and I wouldn't have had to, and so my mindset was different then, and it wouldn't be my responsibility to pay the lights and the this and the that.
Right.
But it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out. I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason.
I'm with you on that.
So it
I'm
worked
definitely
out
with
the
you
way it
on
was
that.
supposed to work out.
I'm with you on that. How do you balance like professional goals with personal values? Like how do you balance business
And family.
Right.
And things like that. So they changed from the time that I started.
Right.
Okay. When I started, I knew I needed to make myself available to customers, and so not have people coming by and be like, "Oh man, he ain't here again." Because being a barber, if you're gonna be successful, in my opinion, it's not a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
You know, just yesterday, I started working at 5:30 a.m. People say people get haircuts. Yeah, people get some. You know, some people are early risers.
If you make the time available, we there.
Right. You know, and so my son had. So you talk about balancing. Right? So both of my children that are at home now, you know, are doing very well in school, and they're both in sports activities and other activities, right? And so my son had a doubleheader baseball game that started at 12 o'clock. So I'm not gonna miss them games if I don't have to.
Right.
Right. So what do I need to do? I either need to come earlier or I need to come later.
Right.
I didn't want to come later. So I got up 4 o'clock in the morning, got myself together like I would any other day, got into that barbershop, and it was still dark outside. And we cutting hair just like it was
Normal
noon.
day. Right.
So I finished up a day's work by 11 o'clock. And then I went and I sat in the bleachers and I had my own folding chair and I kicked back with Sammy.
Yes, sir.
And he was in the batter's box and I went and stood by the gate, you know, by the fence and coached him through the what to do and what not to do and I was present. Right? I'm present. He knows that his father works and has that barbershop, but he'll be here for me. So the balance is there, right? Because I worked and I did that, and nothing suffered, right? And I've been doing that from day one. My oldest son, who I told you is 28, you know, he was an all-city football player, all-city track. Track would have you going all over you go to state, you got to go here, go there. So, you know, barbers don't want to leave on a Saturday, right? So what do? I work, I get up in the morning on Friday, I start at 6 a.m., I take it all the way till 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
They say, are you tired? Yeah, I'm tired. You tired too? You just didn't do what I did. You did something else. And so then we get on the road on Saturday and we go. Now, there were a few times where I couldn't go, but my wife, being who she is, she stood in for me. She was going when I went, but she stood in for me, and she took my son and went out of town and all that kind of stuff. And so the balance is there. So what would I do? So, you know, you want to be around your house too. You know what I mean? You dinner time and all that kind of stuff. So what would I do? Hey, I'm gonna be cutting, so I'm not gonna be at home. So what am I gonna do? Y'all come over here. Y'all come over here. We go in the back.
Right.
We can eat. We can have dinner there. We're in the mall. They got the food court. I'll meet you over there. I'll meet you at the mustard seed, or I'll meet you here.
Right.
And you know, we'll take an hour out of that time. So I got to hang out with my family at that time, where normally, you know, you would go home and have dinner. But that's how. So we just had to fit it in. And again, my wife being who she is, being a very logical, reasonable person, because some barbers and lost their marriages from the time that they spend, because of the time they spend in that barbershop and not at home. If you have somebody who doesn't have the same mindset as you, doesn't understand the goal, y'all not on the same page, you can get messed up. But my wife was
Imbalance.
my wife is the rock of our family. Most men like to poke their chest out and act like they
Yeah.
my wife is the one.
I
My
look
mother
at it.
was
I look at it like the man sometimes be like the, like how the president is the face of America. But,
Right.
It's plenty counterparts behind him that's actually
Absolutely.
running the show. You know what I mean? That'd be our one.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
We had this conversation before. It
Right.
was probably a couple months ago. Not to get into no political stuff, but I said, what makes this hand on the watch go round?
Exactly.
And you said, what?
I said the battery.
That's right.
Told me, you
yeah,
told
it's
me
the battery.
Right.
So, but it's the mechanisms behind all this
Right.
stuff that's in there that's doing that. And so, what makes this country go round? It ain't no president. It's Congress. It's the international bankers. It's whatever else that makes this world go round.
Right.
And so, what makes the Trouts go round?
Right.
As my parents like to say, the junior Trouts. What makes the Trouts go round is Brianna. Brianna is the one. That and like I said, men would love to say that they're the ones, you know what I mean? And maybe in some households they are, but I don't find myself weaker to be able to say that she's the one that held it together. Because when I was younger and I wasn't thinking the way I'm thinking now, and I wasn't doing right all the time, she was the one that was and was the glue.
Exactly.
Just like my mother. My father's cold cat. Now he's a very successful person.
Right.
But my mother was the glue.
Right.
Exactly. My father, like I said, is big time, man. That's a whole nother subject. But my mother, also big time in her own right. But she was the glue. She was that foundation. You know what I mean? That rock. You know what I mean? And so my wife was that for me, and I needed it, or I wouldn't be here. Right. As in this capacity, I would not have owned. I would not be the owner of Classic Cuts Barbershop. Right. I would not be a barber if it wasn't for my wife.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so,
I respect it.
Yeah, so that's what it is.
Because I remember one time I was talking to my aunt before she passed away. And within my family circle, she was the glue to the family. She was the one that hosted everything, that did everything. They spoke to us in times when I was angry at my mom or my dad. I go to my auntie. Right. She the glue, right?
The village.
So what makes that, with that being said, in times where we seen her fall sick or fall weak, it was hard for us because it's hard to see when somebody got so much influence over everybody else, and then you see them in pain or you see them weak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's hard for a woman, to cry sometimes when she knows that she got to keep everything together.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think, but I also think that, know how they say behind every strong black man is a strong black woman? I beg to differ. I say behind every strong black man is an intelligent black woman. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they got this.
Absolutely. I told somebody the other day that they're smarter than us, and
most
people wanted to argue. I wasn't going to argue because I was trying to make a point, and so he brought it up the next time we were there, and he said, "Hey man, I kind of understand what you're talking about." So, okay. That's why they say that the young girls potty train before the boys.
Right.
My great grandfather told my father to marry a woman that was 7 years younger than him. All right. And his point was and my dad always laughs about it, but I think he was serious. What he was saying was women mature faster than men do. Right. So by the time when you're 28 and she's 21, she'll be right where you are. If you both are 21, right? She gonna be ahead of you. She gonna shoot past you. Right, she gonna shoot past you, and
right.
She might not want to deal with you in your immature ways.
Right.
Well, he didn't tell my father to do something that he didn't do because my son Samuel James Trout was named after him. Right. And my daughter is named after his wife Sadie Trout, and Samuel Trout, the great grandfather, was 7 years older than Sadie. Oh, okay. And now my father, I'm assuming it just worked out, but my father, James Trout, is 7 years older than Peggy Trout, my mother. Right. And so it all worked out. And so how whether he was looking for somebody, I can't imagine he was, but it worked out. But the point is, the women are they're just ahead of us,
Yeah, they are.
right? And so they needed some balance. He was 7 years older, and so I'm older. I'm older than my wife, but she's by 4 years, but she's beyond me. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I definitely agree with that.
I'm not putting myself down, but she's sharp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's sharp in so many different ways, and I know that I'm sharp, but she
She the
where
tip of the knife.
man,
You the blade going up to the top.
she's the sharpest one in the drawer. You know what I mean?
I
She's
can
the
dig
sharpest one in the
it.
drawer.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what leadership qualities do you believe are essential for success?
It's a tough question.
Everybody's not a leader,
Yeah.
and most people follow.
I think for me, I think just being myself and being the same way all the time, even when Aunt's not looking at me,
Right.
doing things the right way. I told you before, I didn't always do things the right way,
Right.
but um, I guess in a lot of ways, I don't look at myself as a leader, but I am a leader,
Right.
and I see like when that young cat left with me, he was looking up to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But but I think you just have to you just have to just do things the right way. Always do them the right way, and and let the cards fall where they may.
Right.
Now I got two barbers in the shop, right? I don't need them to be like me. They're not gonna be like me.
Right.
I talk loud and draw a crowd a lot of times. You know what I mean? But that's I grew up in the barbershop like that. The barber would start the conversation and get
Right.
everybody going. Next thing you
Right.
know, he didn't instigate the conversation.
Right.
But I hope that I'm being a leader in a sense as far as following a lot of the things that I do just by my actions. I hope that Zay. I hope that he's caught on to some things because he's gonna do his own. He's gonna do his thing one day, and it's just like watching a basketball player, right? Take a little bit from his game, take a little bit from his game, take a little bit from his game.
And you form your own
You
game.
form your own game,
Right. Right.
And I hope that I've led him in a certain way that he could take a few little pieces from me,
Right.
and then a few pieces from
Me
somebody
personally,
else.
I'm pretty sure you do.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you do because, it's only been a short time, but from my indulgence with you, it's like sometimes I book haircuts and I don't come for the haircut.
Right.
I come for the conversation.
Come on.
I come for the comfort. You know what I mean? It's like a close cut connection. You know what I mean? And for me to be so far away from home, it's like I don't have too many men or too many people that I can go to immediately.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you like one of them people is like you full of knowledge, you full of it, and one thing that I do know is you firm.
Right.
Whatever you stand on, you believe, and you are firm on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if that's not being displayed for me, for the way I grew up, I don't associate. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it's an improper way of like carrying yourself as a man.
Yeah.
And when I seen that from the times that I have been knowing you to now, I think that is like is gravitating. You know what I mean? Like you said, you might not look at yourself as a leader, but I definitely see you as one. You know what I mean?
And I'm just talking about how I look at myself, and I think it's a mistake for me to start looking at myself differently than I do.
Right.
And it's all right for you to do. Basically, it's a mistake for me to toot my own horn, right? But if somebody else does, that's fine, and that's and it's a good thing. I don't want to poo poo it. I do understand where you're coming from, but I've heard it before. I got a partner. He's a football coach. He's
Right.
a college football coach,
Right.
and he's successful, and he's big time.
Right.
And you know what I mean. And he's a real friend. I I don't go around talking about people are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so either we have a connection or we don't. The rest of them are acquaintances. It's somebody I know,
Right.
but I can count on my
Right.
hands. I can count on my both hands how many friends I have. And I remember him telling me one time before he
That's
got his,
cold right there.
be, be, before he became as successful as he is now. He said, "Man, I set these appointments every Thursday." He said, "They're like therapy." This was before I had my own place. He said, "It's therapy. You know, coaching life is a hard life, right? It's a dog eat dog world, literally." And he talked about, man, just to be able to come here and just sit and have a conversation or not have a conversation. It just sit here, and it was like therapy for him. So it's him. There's several other people. Well, guess what? I was that customer. I'm still that customer. People, I ain't got no hair no more. I used to have waves and 360s, and man, used to have competitions with my partners. I said, "Oh man, you cheating? You got a bald fade with yours. You only got waves on the top. I got 360s, right?"
Right.
And so we would go back and forth like that, man. But I still to this day, I go to the east side and I sit down with my boy QC, and he still does my beard and balls my head. I can do that myself. I get out of my shop and I go sit with somebody else, and I sit and have a conversation with them and be in that barbershop atmosphere. I love the barbershop. The barbershop means more than a haircut for me.
And that's what we used to tell women. That's a safe space for men.
It's-
You can't come.
Yeah, you know, like
You can't come.
when some cats they bring their wife. You know, I don't discourage it, but I'm like, man, you just made it so you can't really say what you want to say.
Right.
You it's not the same when if you know. Then I've had women that came and they come and get a haircut.
Right.
You know, and I base who I have around me as far as other barbers. They have to have an on and off switch. If there's women in the barbershop, you can't say.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You gotta know what to say.
And I don't want to have to come whisper to you and raise you to say the right things or what not to say. But man, I love the barbershop, you know, and not just my home. When I go if I go into another city, you know, people are like, man, why you going to a barbershop? Because I want to see how they do things.
Right.
I want to see what their atmosphere is
Right.
like. I don't need to go in there and tell them exactly who I am from the gate, but I go into other places because there's just more than one way to do it, and also I feel good when I'm in the barbershop.
Right.
You know what I mean? I really do. And so I understand what you're saying when you say, I don't always come when I need a haircut. I cut your hair the other day and I cut it down. But you didn't even want a full haircut.
Right.
I didn't realize that until later on when I looked at it. You know what I mean?
But hey, I know how you is.
Yeah, I was
auto. You on auto.
auto cruise control, you know, autopilot.
Right. So let me ask you, man, what's the most significant thing? I mean, the most significant risk that you've taken in business, and what did you learn from it as a whole? What did you learn from the risk that you have taken?
Mine was not so much financially because my father helped me when I first started.
Okay.
We actually had the money to do it, and I don't think I realized that we had enough to do it. That's the first risk. That's the risk that people normally talk about.
Right.
Man, honestly, if he ever sees this, he knows that I'm always that I keep it 100 at all times.
Right.
It was bringing the barber that left with me from the first shop. My biggest risk was bringing him with me. Okay, that was, and what did I learn from it? I learned that I could never, even though he looked at me as a father figure, he didn't even look at me as a big brother. He looked at me as a father figure,
Right.
because he had a father that lived in this town and could see him in a grocery store and walk right past him.
Wow.
All right, and there's a lot of them situations, not just in the black community, but there's a lot of those situations where we live right here in this city and has no and at one point lived less than a half a mile from him, but still hadn't seen him in 9 years.
Right.
And so, again, not trying to be, but being around him, he started looking at me as a father.
Do you think that's like a egotistic type of thing when
For
for a man and a son, for a father not to like make contact with their son during times of tribulation or trials to where they look up to somebody else as a father figure or a big brother?
I don't know. You talking about from
From
that father's?
that point, from their perspective, or just in general?
Well,
Because there's a lot of men that do that.
yeah,
No, it's a lot of men that's like that.
they're not taking care of their
Right,
children.
right.
Yeah, right. Because I've seen you bring your children,
Right.
bring your sons, and even though I mispronounced one of their names, I'm thinking the other one was Ant.
Right,
What's the
right.
other one's name?
Elijah.
Elijah. So I
Right.
call it Elijah Ant. You know what I
Right.
mean? Here's the thing. So I tell people all the time, I don't always remember names. I remember shapes of heads and things like that.
Right.
But what I do know is that Ant brings his children to the barbershop.
Right.
Right. When it's time to get a haircut or whatever. What do I think about it? I think that I think a lot of it has to do with the examples that they had in their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Some men don't have that when they get with when they have a woman that's good for them. They don't hold on to them. Like I'm telling you about Brianna,
Mm-hmm.
right? Brianna. I met Brianna 28 years ago,
Right.
and she been solid all the way through. And even when I wasn't doing right,
Mm-hmm.
and we wouldn't talk for a year or two, or whatever. Bottom line, when you made the circle, and you came right
Still
back came back to where it was supposed to, where I was supposed to be. And so with these fathers, man, I got a cat that I grew up with. He's got 9 children, right? And he's got 7 different mothers, and to each his own, right? Because I'll tell you about something along the same lines. But they didn't all grow up in his house,
Right.
and he didn't have the type of influence over all of them as he should.
did. Right,
He
right.
only had it on maybe 1 or 2. And then you have these fathers. They don't have an example in their own households, and so they just don't. They just. And then they're not with that mother anymore, and they get with another one, and they let that mother influence them on not dealing with these children. There's all kinds of things that happen. But I also know a guy who has 10 children. Follow me. He has 10 children, and he has 10 different mothers.
Wow.
Listen,
Wow.
listen. He took care of each household, and I don't mean he paid child support for each. He did that and more. He paid light bills for each household. Only thing they could be mad about was that he wasn't with them. He was with only one of the 10,
Right.
in the end. So I don't think that that's ideal. I don't even think that it's right. But he would never walk by his children
Right.
and not see them.
Not acknowledge them. Right.
You couldn't imagine if you had the ability to take off work and go see your son play baseball. I know that you would do that. You would
Right.
if you could leave, you would leave.
Well, definitely.
There's just a lot of guys where their children don't mean that much to them. I know people that think that being pro-black means being anti-white, and so I know a guy who hasn't had a relationship with, and he's a friend of mine. He hasn't had a relationship with his daughter because that daughter was with a white woman.
Right.
And people got all kinds of reasons why they don't take care of their responsibilities. Bottom line is, they're not solid people.
Right. Those qualities that is not there. Don't match.
Those particular qualities are not there. They
Right.
might be good in other ways, but that's not right. I personally, I can tell you, I wouldn't rest easy if I didn't at least do my job as a father. To when we was growing up, I don't know how you do it, Elijah and Ant, but when we was growing up, if we got out of line, our parents believed in not sparing that rod.
Go get that switch out the tree.
You better not come back with no little one. Hey, my parents didn't.
They give you 2 chances. You come in the first time with a small one, they gonna see you out one more time.
My parents didn't tell me to go get switches, and my father didn't go through that.
Right.
When he got his first whoopings, he ain't do wrong no more. You know what I mean?
Right.
But my mother, she did go through that. But my pops, them handful of time. My mom was the one that would get a hold of you. My
Just
pops,
like mine.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
My pops was more. He was real patient. But if every man has a breaking point. right?
I can hear my daddy's voice, and it's over with.
Yeah, you
I'm
know,
done.
it make you feel bad.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm done.
make you feel like just make you feel real low. You know what I mean? But he would drag it out. You know, he did something, and he might not come to you for like 2-3 days, and then when he did it, you know, he said, you know, he come in the room and he lay it out for you, and then he said, man, take a walk with me, and we walked from my room across the hall to his room, and he going through the belts.
Right.
I'm like, man, get that little one. He go and get his thickest black belt. And so we went through all that. Well, I haven't done that. I haven't done it. I've not spanked any of my children, but my children don't have any behavioral problems or any of that kind of stuff. I have one, my youngest son, you know, he might get a little, you know, he get a little rambunctious, but nothing crazy, and he's respectful.
Right.
We just do things. Things have changed over time for me, and so we, you know, sometimes a guy had no example of how to be with his children. Sometimes we have examples and we don't want to be exactly like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like I broke the cycle.
Right.
You know, of you get out of line, I get mad, I whoop you.
Right.
That's not really teaching nobody nothing. You know what I mean?
I think I probably, like, out of my whole entire life, I'm 33 years old.
Right.
I think my daddy probably whooped me twice. You know what I'm saying? Most of the time, for me to get corrected, it was off of his voice. It was off of the way his demeanor was.
Right.
His looks. He can look at me. I'm like, shit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm getting right. You know what I'm saying? And I think the epitome of that is, in the beginning stages, it was instilled, right? You know, my daddy did his thing in the streets at one point in time to where it cost him 12 years of his life in a federal penitentiary.
Yeah.
So even with that, it had already been installed in me to where I can get on a phone call with him in federal prison. And if he say 2-3 words, it's like I'm there now.
If he said,
on the outside, and he ain't even here to get to me. You know what I mean?
What's this I heard about? You know,
you know what I'm saying? And the person that he entrusted my care to be around. You know what I mean? He'll tell everything. You know, he gon' look, Anna did this and do this, and then I get that call. It's like, damn, he told on me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But he was still, even in his time of absence, he was still there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand what I mean by that when I talk about my dad in certain ways, because they don't understand a relationship. I remember one time I was around my dad. I think I was like 6, 7 years old, and he looked me in my face. We was riding. He said, "Look, you my son." He said, "But you also my best friend." He said, "You everything to me, and I want you to know that." And that stuck with me. You know what I mean? It stuck with me because it was like I had multiple roles to play in his presence. And that's why I always say, you know what I'm saying, I'm a king in my own right, but I'm a prince when I'm with my father, because my father's in my presence. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You never be above your father.
Right, right.
You never be above your father. I don't care where you are financially, where you are socially. You'll never be around your father, you know, and you shouldn't want to be.
That's why I tell most cats to read 48 Laws of Power. Never outshine the master. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's my dad.
Yeah, you shouldn't even want to be. You know?
Right.
You just stay in your place.
Right.
Stay in your place.
Exactly.
And you know, you have your roles. You know what I mean? And you can resume your other role when you're not in his in his presence. But you should always be his son.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's how I feel. I don't tell him. What's that? I don't tell him like that, but you know, I love my father, you know what I mean, and I love what he stands for and what he's always been. The reason why I don't tell him, because that's just not the way they did things in his day. You know, with my mother, I tell her, but I tell my own children, right. You know, sometimes my son rolls his eyes, you know what I mean, when I say it, but that's our relationship.
Right.
My father was a teacher. Somebody that through actions, through example, through conversation, but he didn't do all that. But you know, we talk about women, he didn't do all that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? His voice, but also sometimes the absence of his voice. If he didn't talk to you, you're like, man, lips is tight. that make you feel uncomfortable too.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. Welcome to Classic Cuts, located between 3rd and South Washington Street, right in the heart of downtown Spokane, Washington. If you ever in the area and you need an exclusive cut, I suggest you go holler at Jay Trout, where the prices are affordable and you'll leave feeling confident, refreshed, and refined. Now let's get into this episode and find out some of the rich history that helped establish this barbershop. Welcome to Be Heard with YB. Let's get it. All right, y'all. We in this second half of the show. And now we're going to bring up the topic and discussion of family relationships and balance. Jay has emphasized many times about the role of his wife and the things that she has done to help him catapult his way into business as an entrepreneur. So the question that I have for you, Jay, is how do you make time for your partner during the time that you have to balance out working and running the shop and everything like that?
I don't think I've done that perfectly.
You don't think so?
No. I think you just when it comes to that, because it's hard because I'm not her only responsibility and she's not my only responsibility.
Right.
And so she's always running. I'm not at work and she's sitting at the house. She works very hard and she also has the children. And so I think that you have to just take the time to balance. You have to say, hey, let's go eat.
Right.
Or let's do this or let's do that.
Now I'm taking notes on this now.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm taking real notes.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of times ends up being the hardest thing to do. Because you know that you have to be there for your children, because if you don't, you end up messing them up. Right? They end up thinking that their father didn't love them, or they didn't even think like that. They just think that fathers do this and do that. But with your wife, sometimes you take that for granted.
Right.
All right. And even last night, I'm watching the last 5 episodes of Ghosts. All right.
Right.
And I'm at home for 2-3 hours by myself. Man, I'm at home by myself once a year.
Right.
Somebody's always home when I get home. I told you I had a heart attack.
Right, you told me.
I was by myself.
Most scariest thing in the world.
Scariest thing. Man, I'm in the corner of my couch thinking it's over. You know what I mean? And ain't nobody there to help me. So yesterday, as I realized I was gonna be home by myself, I started going, oh man.
Like, do they like get you there mentally?
As far
as like from the time when you had experienced a heart attack and you was at home by yourself, do it like get you there sometime like I don't want to be by myself?
No. I got happier and happier when I realized I was gonna be at home by myself. It wasn't that I don't want to be around them. I was like, you know what, I'm about to pull this ironing board out. You know how it is sometimes. I'm not going to the clinics. I'm about to iron my own stuff. I'm about to turn on this TV. Everybody laugh at me because I sit down and iron.
Man, you gotta be lying right now.
No, I ain't lying.
Man, listen, they told me I was crazy.
No.
They said, why you still earning? I said, y'all don't. They said, nah, we don't earn it. I just put them on. I said, what? I can't do that.
I don't even understand that.
Man.
So I turned on the TV. I got the ironing and all that stuff, man. And then she came. I heard the garage open. I said, she about to come in here and start talking. and so she came in. And a lot of times she come in, she just mind her business. And we try not to bother each other for a few minutes because you just walk in or they don't know why. She came in and started talking about after the game they went to birthday parties and things like that. I didn't go to the birthday parties, and she started talking. And I was like, so when she wanted me to get out of her space, she said, "Oh, you about to go upstairs for a minute? You about to go take a shower?" That's kind of code for like, stop talking to me so I can do something. So
right.
I looked at her. I said, "You about to go upstairs and start making dinner or something?" And so she looked at me. She started laughing. She said, "Nah." She said, "I thought we could have a conversation." And I looked at her. I said, all right, well, push pause. I said, well, go ahead. Let's talk.
Right.
Really, I should have shut that off when she walked in.
Right.
Because that, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes, that could have been the time that we could talk without wasting time talking about, are you going upstairs or making, she didn't feel bad, but making her feel like I didn't want to talk.
Right.
I was locked into this show, and that show doesn't even mean anything.
Right,
you know what I mean? So I don't think that that's just one example, but I don't think that I've mastered that part. We've been married now for 16 years.
That's a blessing.
And I told you, I ain't gonna tell no stories. You know, my daughter, if it wasn't for my daughter, I wouldn't have made it. She kept us together because I wasn't doing right. You know what I mean? I just, you just don't know how to be married. You know what I mean? And so, that's just the way it was. So when the rift came, it was my daughter. I believe it was my daughter that caused my wife not to divorce me. Right? So the kids played a role without even knowing that they played a role.
Right.
But I don't think that I've mastered. I know that I haven't mastered the balance with my partner, with my wife, and all that kind of stuff. I remember she was getting on my nerves probably about 8-9 years ago, man. Maybe even 10 years ago.
Right.
And I called. I was actually going to call my mom. She didn't answer. My dad answered. You know, he didn't usually answer the house phone. You know, I was back when people still had house phones.
Right.
And I said, hey, man, she getting on my nerves, man. I said, you know what she did? She blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, well, buckle up. I've been married to your mama for 46 years. She did that yesterday. And he said, yeah.
He told you straight up.
So if you want to cry, he said, go cry to the Pope.
And he ain't listening.
he ain't listening. And he probably don't even remember the conversation.
You know what I mean?
But I'm telling you, and my mom, they took different approaches. You know what I mean? I've talked a lot about my father, but my mom, I told you she was the one. But they took different approaches. When you talk about best friends, they always say, your parents ain't supposed to be your friends and all that kind of stuff, but they end up being your friends.
Right,
you know what I mean? Your dad had a way. Well, my father is the godparents of my children.
Right.
I don't need no outsider. You know what I mean?
Right.
It might not work out like that or whatever, but that was my way of saying that's my guy. You know what I mean? And my mom, that's my wife's my wife, but that's the one. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, how do you balance it? I'm still trying to figure it out, but I have an example.
Right.
My parents been married for 53 years. I have an example, and the example is compromise. People, they talk about that kind of stuff, and they talk about compromise, and that's just something that people, they just throw that word around. But there's some things that my wife might want to do that I don't want to do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm 100%.
Yeah, man, I don't want to do that.
Invested in that part. I'm for sure that. You know what I mean?
We've had them little
it's like, let's
conversations.
go to this festival. Man, I want to go to
that. Right? Sometimes,
You know what I mean?
Sometimes the only time that I'm able, like I didn't have to work today. I'm off Sunday, Monday. And the only time that I have to sleep in would be a Sunday. But I gotta go to church. And that's for my children. That's for my wife. But bottom line, it should be for me all the time. But sometimes I want to sleep in. It doesn't have anything to do with I don't want to go to church or because of the church setting. It's like I sure would like to sleep in right now. You know what I mean? But but you have to compromise in it. And every time I compromise, I come out better for it. Right. And so I think that's the way to do it, but I haven't mastered it. I really haven't.
I agree. I haven't either, man. I haven't. Man, this conversation has been totally great. I think we talked about a lot. I think my fans and the people who view the show definitely know and got an image of who you are. before we end, I always have to ask. We have to go into culture.
Yeah.
Because for y'all, we don't have that much time. And we coming up on the closing time. People in the back are already waving us off. But when it come to culture and the image of Black America, what is a message from you to Black America that you feel they deserve to hear? Gotcha.
So the last part of that again.
When it comes to Black America, what is a message that you have that you would like to implement to the culture for a different type of mindset and a different type of way of thinking?
Be comfortable in your own skin.
That's powerful.
Stop trying to impress people with clothes, with conversation. Stop looking to athletes, rappers, and everybody else to be your role model. If you don't have a role model in your household, get to reading, look at somebody in your community, but do other things than the things that have already been done. We've already looked at that. You're not LeBron James. And you're not Michael Jordan. And you don't have to go out and buy them $200-$300 shoes to be accepted by your peers. Do the work in your classroom. Do the work in the classroom, and you one day set the example of what everybody has a mindset and an idea of what it means to be Black. You're Black just because you're Black. But when they tell you to do 100 problems, you need to do 200. When they tell you to read 50 pages, you need to read 100 pages. You have to go above and beyond what's being asked of you, and you have to dig a little further than the history book or whatever that they're giving you. You have to dig a little bit further than that. You have to you stop being led around by people that don't mean you well.
Right.
All right. So be comfortable in your own skin. Look at other Black successful people, whether they own a business or not. And you don't have to ask a bunch of questions. Just get around them. Birds of a feather
Flock together.
Right?
Know it.
So just get around them, and some of that stuff will rub off on you. That's the short. We got a short time, but that's, in my opinion, that's the short of it. I think the reason why I say be comfortable in your own skin, because that's the problem with a bunch of people. They don't even know who they are. I'm not just talking about Black history. They don't even know who they are right now today. They so wrapped up into trying to. Did you hear about Meek Mill and Drake? Man, what that got to do with you? How would that enhance your life? It's not going to enhance your life. You're looking at two brothers arguing with each other that are millionaires but putting each other down, and one of them is going to ascend, the other one is going to fall. Who cares about that? What can you do for yourself to lift yourself up? And I just think that so many people, so many of us, men and women, but I feel more so men, are insecure
100%.
and just not comfortable with who they are. Get yourself right. Get yourself right and do things right. Get your mind right. Get everything right so that you can be proud of who you are. And be comfortable with who you are. And once you do that, it doesn't matter what Joe Blow says about you. It doesn't matter what he has on as compared to what you have on. Those things don't matter. And I didn't learn that in the last couple of years. I learned that at home. Everything starts at home. And when you raising these children up, raise them up right. Raise them up right. You can't have no child that ends up being big time and a doctor or a lawyer if you don't raise them up right. You gotta raise them up right. You gotta put that confidence in them. But you first have to have confidence in yourself.
Right.
If you don't have no confidence in yourself, and always stay true to yourself. And when you talk about black men, and stay true to you, I talked about pro-black and anti-white and all that. You don't have, just because you pro-black don't mean you have to be anti-white. But know who you are, and be proud of being black.
Right.
Man, there's people. I'm telling you right now. There's young kids that don't understand the concept of black and white and all that kind of stuff. To think that are listening to the white folks that don't want you to think that you're somebody, that think that being black is wrong.
I agree.
I'm telling you, I know.
I agree.
You know what I mean? I get them in the barber chair. You know, but the folks in my barber chair are ranging from 2 to 92. And when you get young kids in the chair talking about, you know, this person in my class said this about that. You know what I mean? You and I have to be talking to younger black kids and our own children, and make them feel comfortable and make them feel great about being who they are.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's about the best I can tell you. I can't tell you no more than that. Be comfortable with who you are, and roll with it. You know what I mean?
Agree.
And stop trying to be cool. You know, you be cool and don't even try. You know what I mean? But stop trying to be cool. And don't be in an identity crisis your whole life. You can be in an identity crisis your whole life and never know. That's sad. To never know who you are. That's sad. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So
100%.
that's what I have to say about that.
I agree.
All right, brother.
Jay Trout, you guys. Thank y'all once again for being here during this episode. It was a wonderful episode. I hope you took something from it. We ain't about the celebrity gossip. Meek Mill and Drake ain't gonna help us when we walk outside the door. But hopefully this conversation will. And once again, I thank you again, Jay.
Yes, sir, man.
Yes,
I appreciate you having
for
me.
coming on the show. Be here at YB. Y'all tune in, man. It's gonna be aired on YouTube and all over social media platforms. So go find it. You need it. Get out of here.